Hello everyone. Tonight we begin with a question about stone. More specifically, how on earth did thousands of workers, armed with nothing more than copper chisels and rope, manage to stack 2.3 million limestone blocks, some weighing over 70 tons, into a pyramid so precise that even modern lasers nod in approval? You're not alone in wondering. Engineers, dreamers, and archaeologists have puzzled over the Great Pyramid of Giza for centuries, scratching their heads and tracing its corners under sun and starlight. So, before you snuggle into your blanket, hit like on the video and comment where you're watching from. What's the time there? It's so cool to know who's joining us from around the world. Picture holding a chisel the size of your forearm. Hear the clang of metal on stone echo across desert air. Feel the dust settle in your eyelashes. This isn't a job site, it's a ritual. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin by standing in the sands west of the Nile, squinting up at a shape your brain can barely absorb. It's too clean, too vast. The Great Pyramid isn't just big, it's confidently impossible. Even worn by 4 millennia of weather, it still defies casual logic. You imagine walking toward it barefoot, the grit underfoot heating in the sun, the horizon trembling from the sheer heat of stone against sky. Once it gleamed, not this dusty golden gray you see today, but polished white. The original casing stones, now mostly gone, would have reflected sunlight so fiercely that travelers reported seeing it shimmer from miles away like a fallen star. Picture that, 480 feet tall, glowing in the Egyptian sun like a cosmic lighthouse, pulling your eyes upward toward eternity. It all began with a single question: how do you build for a god? Pharaoh Khufu, also known as Cheops, wasn't interested in modest legacy. His reign, around 2580 BCE, was the second dynasty's architectural apex. You imagine the man himself standing beside architects with reed scrolls fluttering, drawing invisible lines in the air with his fingers. He wants a tomb unlike any the world has seen, a staircase to the afterlife, as immortal as his name. But here's the curious twist. We still don't have a clear blueprint. No surviving master plan, no papyrus diagram tucked in some dusty archive. Just the end result and a million questions. Ancient Egyptians left plenty of writings about taxes, dreams, magic, and cats, but they never detailed how they built the pyramid. Not directly. It's as if the process was either so sacred it remained unwritten, or so ordinary they didn't think to explain it. Isn't that odd? Historians still argue whether the construction began from the center and expanded outwards, or from the edges in. Some believe the base was leveled using water trenches. Others think celestial alignments dictated every measurement. But the one thing they agree on? The builders had an almost supernatural obsession with precision. You lie back and think of a single stone, the very first. It would have been carved, polished, placed, blessed. One wrong move and the entire pyramid would drift askew. Yet today, the base is aligned to true north with an error of just 3/60th of a degree. That's tighter than some modern skyscrapers. Your breath slows as you try to imagine laying a foundation so perfect, without lasers, without GPS, just sightlines, stars, and sweat. And then the stones begin to arrive. Limestone for the core, granite for the inner chambers, basalt for the mortuary temples. The heaviest granite blocks came from Aswan, over 500 miles away. That's like dragging a piano across half a continent uphill in sand. Some archaeologists believe the stones were floated down the Nile during flood season, lashed to barges. Others picture massive sleds pulled over lubricated sand with water poured ahead of the runners. In fact, one ancient wall painting shows exactly that: a team of men hauling a giant statue as another man pours water before the sled. Just a splash, but it makes all the difference. A quirky fact: damp sand can cut friction in half. So next time you slip on wet tile, just remember, you've got ancient Egyptian physics underfoot. But the mystery deepens. The workforce? Not slaves. That's a myth long debunked. Archaeological finds reveal bakeries, barracks, and even tombs for workers. These weren't oppressed masses. They were rotating teams of laborers, proud of their contribution. Some graffiti scrawled inside the pyramid reads like locker room banter: the drunkards of Menkor, the friends of Khufu. It's like the ancient version of carving Team Alpha into the job site. And yet, even with pride and planning, it still doesn't seem possible. You close your eyes and listen. The rhythmic creak of wooden rollers, the call of a foreman, the thud of rope against stone, the grunt of effort as a team hauls a block into place, inch by inch, across a desert whose silence is broken only by their heartbeat rhythm. One wrong move and someone's crushed. But they keep going, day after day, decade after decade, because this isn't just a project. It's a bridge to the afterlife. And maybe that's the secret. To them, it wasn't a pyramid in the modern sense. It was a sacred machine, a solar ramp, a resurrection engine. The smooth sides once mirrored the sun's path, transforming the structure into a celestial vehicle. Khufu's soul, they believed, would rise along its edge like the morning sun, joining Ra in his endless voyage. You sigh, imagining the scale, the devotion, the sheer oddity of building something so huge and mysterious with no intention of anyone ever seeing its interior again. That's right, the pyramid wasn't made for public tours. Its most sacred chambers were meant to be sealed forever, containing the pharaoh, some treasures, and a heavy silence that outlives memory. Even now, the Great Pyramid doesn't explain itself. It just endures. The wind shifts as you approach the idea, not just of stone or even effort, but of intention. Behind each cut block lies a dream, a belief system vast as the desert sky. And it all begins with a man named Khufu. He doesn't speak in your story, not directly, but his presence hums like a pulse through everything around you. Even now, 4.5 millennia later, the mere whisper of his name conjures images of grandness, of ambition on a scale so irrational it must have seemed divine. Imagine you're a young scribe, standing on a bluff overlooking the Giza Plateau in the early years of Khufu's reign. The Nile glimmers to your east, swollen with seasonal flood. Below you, gangs of surveyors use cords, plumb bobs, and leveling tools to trace invisible lines onto sand that will one day hold the weight of eternity. There's excitement in the air, a sacred nervousness. You rub ink from your thumb and whisper a quick prayer to Thoth. Not for yourself, but for the architect whose trembling fingers hover over a dusty grid, adjusting a sighting tool ever so slightly to catch the alignment of a star. This is more than engineering. It's devotion. Khufu has charged his master architect, Himeyunu, with an impossible task: to design a burial monument worthy not of a man, but of a god reborn. His father, Sneferu, built 3 pyramids, each more refined than the last. Khufu aims to surpass them all in height, mass, and spiritual resonance. A pyramid so flawless, its geometry alone will testify to divine favor. No pressure. You picture Himeyunu pacing at night, muttering calculations by oil lamp, carving numbers into potsherds, weighing angles by starlight. Does he feel terror? Pride? Does he dare to dream that people will still study his creation 10,000 moons from now? Probably not. He's more worried about limestone deliveries. That's the thing. Big visions still need small hands. You glance around the early site and see them. stonecutters with dusty knees, overseers barking orders, architects peering into plumb lines, young apprentices wiping sweat with the edges of their linen skirts. One of them, perhaps, is named Ka. You see him chewing on reeds, eyes darting between chisel and block. He's not much older than you, but his hands are rough from hammering dolerite into stone for weeks. He's good, though, a perfectionist. Some call him the one who squints, because he always closes one eye to check the line. You wave to him. He doesn't wave back. He's too focused, tongue caught between his teeth as he grinds a stone's corner smoother than polished bone. What Khufu wants, Khufu gets. And what he wants is permanence. But permanence isn't built in one go. First, there are months of preparation, measuring, leveling, rerouting Nile tributaries to make space. You help mark corners using stretched rope and stars. There's a ritual to it. For corners, for gods, for cardinal points. You chant quietly with the others, listening for the priest's blessing as the site becomes holy ground. Then the digging begins. Imagine carving out a massive trench, hundreds of feet on each side, by hand. No steel, no engines. Just picks, baskets, and backbreaking repetition. The goal? To level a foundation within inches across all sides. Some scholars believe they filled the trench with water and used it to gauge the level. Others suggest careful triangulation and surveying. Either way, they succeed. The pyramid's base is nearly perfect, just 7 inches difference across 13 acres. Try to do that without a calculator sometime. You might break a stylus. Joke aside, the base isn't just flat, it's a statement. We take this seriously. Every inch matters. Every angle has meaning. And now comes the stone, quarried nearby. Local limestone is cut with copper chisels and dolerite pounders. You picture the clang, the showers of dust, the rhythmic tapping echoing through stone valleys. Sleds are loaded and dragged along roads hardened with clay and limestone chips. Alongside them, barefoot workers shout in unison, synchronizing their heaves like a desert orchestra. Ka is there, pulling ropes with a team of 30. They chant to pace themselves. Something about hippos dancing on crocodile tails. It doesn't make much sense, but it's funny, and funny keeps you from collapsing. At the base, skilled setters await. They guide the block's final inches, adjusting with levers and damp sand. You'd be amazed how little it takes to shift a stone once it's moving, and how hard it is to stop it once it's not. Some blocks are laid in under 10 minutes. Others take half a day. The workers live nearby in a camp that hums with industry, bakeries, breweries, dormitories. You pass by the mess line and smell barley bread and lentil stew. Beer flows like a sacred river here, nutritious, bubbly, and oddly pleasant after a hot day. It's not exactly the nectar of the gods, but no one's complaining. One thing you notice, though, there's laughter, jokes, a sense of pride. These aren't miserable slaves whipped under duress. They're artisans, farmers, conscripts from across the region, rotating in shifts, bringing their skill and sinew to something greater than themselves. You overhear an old carpenter say, "Even the scarabs know not to crawl across our stone." He chuckles, then spits to the side, muttering about splinters. The atmosphere is serious, but not grim. You take a break near the edge of the site and spot a group of children stacking pebbles into a tiny mock pyramid, their giggles carrying on the wind. One of them sticks a reed at the top and declares it's for the sun god. R.A. You smile. Maybe this is how it begins, for all of them. For you, building something that points to the heavens, one block at a time. And while Khufu's vision may seem grandiose to modern minds, it's rooted in something deeply human, the desire to be remembered, to mark time with stone, to turn breath and bone into legend. So as you drift, Let the dust settle around you. Let the creak of sleds and the thump of stone be your lullaby. Somewhere in the distance, Ka squints, runs a hand across a fresh-cut surface, and nods to himself. You wake early, if you can call it waking, because sleep at a work camp like this is more of a long blink beneath linen and stars. The sun is still half asleep too, just brushing the eastern horizon with that faint orange haze that makes the limestone walls blush. But already the site is buzzing. Today is about movement, and movement in a place like this means sweat, calculation, and sand. So much sand. You wrap a cloth around your nose and mouth, not because it's fashionable, but because hauling tons of stone tends to kick up dust that stays in your throat for days. Your hands brush against the smooth, cool rope that connects your sled team. You're not one of the main pullers today, you're observing, for now, but even standing nearby feels like joining a dance that began generations ago and has never quite stopped. The stones are coming in from nearby quarries. Some were cut straight out of the limestone bedrock beneath the Giza plateau itself. Others are floated down the Nile, their journey dictated by floods and currents and sun charts scratched into bark or bark-like memory. The white limestone facing stones, the ones that would eventually reflect sunlight like mirrors, came from Tura, across the river. Granite, darker and heavier, journeys all the way from Aswan, a staggering 500 miles south. That fact alone stirs your curiosity. Imagine navigating 70-ton blocks down a crocodile-infested river in wooden barges. And yet they did it, somehow. Historians still argue over the method. Did they build canals that led straight to the pyramid site, flooding them seasonally to allow easy offloading? Or did they roll the stones from the banks overland using sledges lubricated with water? In 2013, archaeologists found a logbook of a man named Mirror, a supervisor who described bringing limestone from Tura to Giza using boats. His crew guided their precious cargo across a network of man-made canals that once threaded the city like hidden veins. You imagine Mirror's voice echoing orders across the water. Steady. Turn with the current. The groan of rope. The splash of oars. The creak of a fully laden barge sliding into dock like a stone whale beaching itself for one last breath. And yet, mystery remains. No complete map of the canals has survived. No physical remains of boats capable of hauling such loads have been conclusively tied to the pyramid construction. It's like catching glimpses of a shadow's shadow. Still, the movement continues. At the site, roads are prepped, flattened with crushed limestone, layered with clay. Teams with copper-bladed shovels and woven baskets dig, smooth, tamp. You pause and watch two workers with long-handled scoops and bare feet patting down the ground like they're baking a cake the size of an island. As for hauling the stones, there's no magic to it, just physics and coordination. You've heard whispers, though, about songs that guide the rhythm, about sledges that seem to glide a little too easily. Some even say the stones want to move, as if touched by gods. Then the chant begins. A low hum, then a call. Push the sky, shouts the lead puller, and the team responds in chorus. 1, 2, 1, 2, they heave. You watch muscles coil like ropes, shoulders braced, hips locked. The sled groans forward, the stone riding it like a slumbering beast. Someone pours water ahead to reduce friction. A clever trick. It works. The stone moves. Each day, dozens of such blocks are dragged to the site, placed, adjusted, aligned, and you realize something profound. This isn't just about strength. It's about timing, knowledge, and trust. There's a system here, a choreography. It's as if every crew, every team, knows their part in a performance centuries in the making. And if you follow the line of the road back far enough, you reach the Nile. The river isn't just a body of water. It's a god, a highway, a heartbeat. It floods each year, spreading black silt across the farmlands, feeding the people. It also brings what Giza needs most, transportation. Without the river, there is no pyramid. During inundation, the landscape changes. Water fills low canals, lifting boats into places that are dry 9 months of the year. Skilled pilots guide the heavy-laden barges through these channels, sometimes by starlight, sometimes by instinct. You hear stories of pilots who navigate by the taste of the air or by how the water curls around their ankles. Is it true? Hard to say. But every myth has a grain of truth. You meet an old boatman, Merritt, who claims he can tell the depth of water just by how it sounds against the reed banks. He grins, toothless, and tells you he once guided a barge through a night fog so thick even Thoth couldn't see through it. Want to know how? He asks. You nod. I tied a frog to the bow, he chuckles. When it croaked, I turned. It's a joke. Probably. But you laugh, and that's enough. Later, as the sun climbs high, you stand on a rise and look over the site. Workers move in waves, dragging, lifting, hammering. Boats bob on distant water. Sand flutters in soft spirals around your ankles. It's not just labor, it's life. Men and women here are fed, housed, rotated. They have rest days. There are bakers, brewers, medics, even priests who walk among the ranks, murmuring blessings, scattering herbs. This isn't a chain gang, it's a temporary city, fueled by barley and belief. You close your eyes and let the rhythms settle into you. The hiss of rope, the squeal of a wooden axle, the crack of a chisel, a distant chant. Somewhere behind you, a boy laughs as a cat chases a beetle across a quarry floor. You smile. Even gods need mortar. The pyramid rises slowly, not like a mountain, but like a memory being built one layer at a time. You run your hand along a fresh block, warm from the sun and still faintly chalky. There's a sound to it when you tap it with your knuckles, a hollow thud, like knocking on the door of a tomb not yet filled. But today isn't about placement. It's about how to raise this colossal thing. And that means asking the question that keeps everyone, even modern archaeologists, up at night. How did they lift the stones that high? You shade your eyes and glance up. The Great Pyramid, when complete, will stand nearly 480 feet tall. That's over 40 stories, built in an age when the only crane available was the human spine. You picture the thousands of stones already stacked and the thousands more yet to come, and you wonder, did they stack blocks like a child building a sandcastle? Or was there a trick? Historians still argue. Oh, do they argue? One theory suggests a straight ramp, an enormous causeway extending from the base at a shallow angle, wide enough for sleds and teams to crawl up like ants on a log. But such a ramp would have to be nearly a mile long. That's more stone than the pyramid itself, and no trace of it remains. Another theory posits a spiral ramp that wound around the structure, a rising helix of earth and stone. Intriguing, yes, but wouldn't it block the builder's view of what they were constructing? Then there's the internal ramp idea, a hidden corridor within the pyramid's outer shell, allowing workers to ascend gradually without leaving evidence behind. French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin champions this theory, and it's gained some traction. But still, no one's found definitive proof. You tilt your head and imagine it, a secret ramp, hidden beneath casing stones, spiraling upward like a serpent. You'd walk its length with torch in hand, feeling the stones sweat around you, the curve of the passage subtly lifting, step by step, breath by breath. Perhaps it's not the how that matters, but the will, the collective decision that this shall be done, no matter the obstacle. Even if no one method was used, perhaps multiple techniques evolved over time. Straight ramps for early stages, lever systems for precise positioning, spiral routes for the highest tiers. Each new layer tested and learned. You glance down and spot a curious device, a wooden lever system rigged beside a partially set block. Two men shift their weight on opposite ends of a long timber pole, slowly tilting the stone into place. It's simple. It's elegant. It works. Better than breaking your back, one of them mutters, adjusting a stone wedge with his toe. The tools of the trade are surprisingly humble. Copper chisels, endlessly resharpened. Dolerite pounders that crack stone like walnuts. Measuring cords notched for accuracy. Plumb bobs carved from bone. Spirit levels made from wood, balanced with water. And sleds, wooden platforms with curved runners, sometimes reinforced with leather. You inspect one up close. The wood is rubbed smooth from use, the knots of the ropes tight and dark with sweat. A scribe records each stone's journey on a clay tablet, its origin, its size, its position. You watch him pause and correct a figure. His stylus scratches gently, a sound barely audible above the wind. Behind him, a young boy, perhaps his apprentice, sits carving not numbers, but a tiny face into the side of a dolerite pounder. He startles when he notices your gaze. "It's my uncle," he explains shyly, "so the stone will remember him." You nod. That seems fitting. Everywhere you look, there are signs of thoughtfulness. A carpenter carving a new lever with meticulous care. A woman adjusting the angle of a pulley using shadows. A man smoothing sand in front of a sled like he's frosting a cake. This isn't chaos. It's choreography. And still, it's hard not to be amazed at the scale. You walk the perimeter of the structure. 13 acres of perfectly squared ground. That's over 500,000 tons of stone. Some blocks weigh as much as an elephant. Each one cut, shaped, moved, placed by hand. But the pyramid isn't rising in silence. It's rising to music. There are songs, work songs, rhythmic chants, even lullabies for the stone. You pause near a team dragging a block and hear their song, soft and gritty. Step with your foot. Pull with your soul. The stone goes higher. The gods take toll. It's half prayer, half motivator. You hum along, the rhythm catching in your chest. Later in the day, you visit the upper tiers. Not too high, just high enough to watch a group using a series of levers and packed sand to lift a block a few inches at a time. One man pours water into the sand. Another shifts a wooden plank beneath the lifted edge. Slowly, the block rises. Then again. Then again. It takes all afternoon. But by sunset, the block rests on its final tier. A cheer goes up. Someone smashes a clay jug in celebration. You're handed a swig of beer, bitter, grainy, cold. It tastes like dust and victory. You sit beside Ka, the squinting mason, as the sun spills orange light over the half-finished pyramid. He speaks without turning. "We don't lift with strength," he says. "We lift with time." And you realize he's right. No one person builds the pyramid. No one day completes it. But with patience, rhythm, and unshakable will, a civilization climbs toward the stars. And as you recline against a half-set block, the dusk whispering across your skin, you begin to believe, just a little, that the pyramid isn't just a monument. It's a poem in stone. The sun is barely up, and already your feet are moving. The dust clings to your ankles like lazy cats, the wind offering little more than a sigh as you trudge past rows of half-set stones. The pyramid looms behind you like a rising mountain that somehow obeys human hands. But today, your path leads elsewhere, not to the base, not to the workshops, but to a winding stretch of land that feeds the entire operation. The road from a quarry. It begins humbly. A chisel strike. A flake of stone. A voice echoing off canyon walls. The quarries are alive, bustling. Tura, just across the river, supplies the smooth, fine limestone used for the outer casing, the stones that once made the pyramid shine like a mirror to the gods. Aswan, far to the south, offers up the red granite used in the king's chamber, and for that journey, the Nile itself becomes a kind of artery. You picture the boats, wide-bellied, low-slung, carved from acacia or imported cedar, gliding through dawn mists with their stone cargoes like floating tombs in waiting. But first, the cutting. You watch the quarrymen work. The air is sharper here, tinged with the smell of broken stone and sweat. Men stand atop cliffs with mallets and wedges, tapping rhythmically to drive cracks along invisible lines. Each strike is a promise, a warning, a whisper to the mountain. Break and be reborn. One technique involves carving small holes in a row, driving wooden pegs into each, then soaking them in water. Slowly, the swelling wood forces the rock to split. It's strangely quiet, no dramatic blasts, just patience and pressure. You meet a foreman named Senmet. His eyes are lined like folds in papyrus, his voice gravelly from years of shouting through dust storms. "Stone teaches you two things," he says, spitting to the side. "One, never rush. Two, always listen." You nod. You try listening, and you begin to hear things. The soft grating of chisel against limestone, the grunt of shoulders pushing levers, the low creak of stone as it shifts, just a hair under a wedge. Even laughter carried over rock. One worker teasing another about sleeping with his hammer like it's a beloved wife. They live here too, not just work. There are tents, crude huts built into quarry walls, fire pits ringed with broken shards of discarded stone. Someone's boiling lentils. Someone else sings an old song about the moon stealing kisses from the river. In the far corner, you spot a cartographer making marks on a slab of clay, recording which stones are ready for transport. The labels are brief but clear. Dimensions, weight, crew assigned, and the date of extraction. It's shockingly organized. Then, the movement begins. Once freed, the stones are lashed onto sleds, some dragged directly to river ports, others hoisted onto barges. That process alone is its own dance. Workers with thick belts and twisted ropes haul in unison, often guided by a foreman with a drum. You watch as one team chants to time their steps. Breath in the rope, salt in the air. The stone will roll, if the gods still care. Their feet kick up powdered stone with every stomp. The sled groans. The earth bends to their rhythm. At the river's edge, things become delicate. The barges are loaded with the precision of a priest arranging relics. One wrong balance, and the entire vessel could tip. You see wedges driven under planks, oil rubbed into joints, ropes triple-checked. The water laps at the hulls like an impatient child. A boy named Tepi climbs aboard to test the deck stability. He runs back laughing, still floating. He's not wrong, but only just. When the boat pushes off, it's almost ceremonial. The crew bows their heads for a moment, either out of respect or caution. Maybe both. The journey up or down the Nile can take days, depending on the wind, the current, and the whims of unseen gods. You imagine them floating through night, the stars mirrored in black water, the granite slumbering like sacred beasts beneath cloth. When they arrive, the unloading is swift but reverent. Stones are lifted by levers, sometimes dragged off using logs or skids. Each one is checked, logged, whispered over. From the bones of Aswan, one laborer murmurs, straight into the heart of Khufu. You pause there. The bones of Aswan, what a phrase. It sticks with you as you follow the trail backward toward the quarries. What you begin to see isn't just transport, but transformation. The desert isn't static, it flows. Not with water, but with intention. Men move earth. Earth becomes stone. Stone becomes legacy. Along the roads, you spot marks, grooves in the sand where sleds have passed, discarded ropes, fragments of broken levers. You bend down and pick up a splintered bit of cedar, smooth at one end, frayed at the other. You wonder, who held this? Were their hands as calloused as yours? Did they curse the sun? Did they sing? You arrive at a rest station, halfway between the quarry and the pyramid. There's water here, shade, figs. A woman tends a pot of dates simmering in honey. She nods at you. "Building the sky, are you?" she asks, smiling. You smile back, something like that. She hands you a strip of dried fish wrapped in barley leaf. Then eat. Sky builders need salt. You sit on a flat rock and chew slowly, watching a new crew pass by, ropes tight across their chests, feet pounding to the same old song. They nod to you. One grins. You raise your hand. For a moment, everything feels still. Then it passes. The dust lifts. The stone moves. The pyramid calls. The pyramid is no longer just a dream. It's a silhouette that breaks the sky, a structure that casts a shadow long before noon. You crane your neck upward and feel the ache in your spine mirror that of thousands, past and present, who've done the same. Today, though, there's tension in the air. The wind picks up early, teasing sand into your eyes and lips. You sense it before the overseers say anything. A storm is coming. You've felt these before. When the desert stirs and mutters. When tools whistle unexpectedly. When ropes fray without warning. Nature does not forget her place, even in the shadow of gods. The foreman shouts for crews to move quickly. Blocks are being guided into place before the air grows too rough. You hurry to your station, passing teams that tighten tarps, lash down supplies, and huddle near equipment. The pyramid's steep face shimmers in the dry heat, and already the sky is dimming. Too early for dusk, too late to turn back. Then it hits. A sharp, slicing gust rushes across the plateau. Sand follows like a curtain pulled too fast, blinding, stinging, slipping through cloth and cracks. You crouch behind a half-set block as a sled groans and tilts nearby. One of the ropes snaps. A block thuds to the ground, not catastrophically, but enough to halt every breath. And yet, amid the chaos, calm. Ka, your friend with the squint and endless patience, steps forward. He waves his arm gently and guides his crew like he's shuffling game pieces. Back. Reset, he calls, voice low but firm. Sand's just talking today. We're still building. You watch him. Dust coats his hair, clings to his lashes. He doesn't flinch. Elsewhere, a woman adjusts the sails on a pulley scaffold, shifting weight so the rig won't tip. A priest appears, arms raised, murmuring to the wind, casting herbs into the air like ink on a page. Someone drops to their knees, not out of fear, but in prayer. This isn't panic. It's choreography under pressure. You help dig trenches to divert the gathering water at the base. It's odd, this much wind and now rain? Just a fine mist, but enough to change the texture of everything. The limestone grows slick. Workers slide. Levers slip. You find yourself bracing with one hand against stone and the other against the wind, wondering if the gods are testing the builders or admiring their stubbornness. A fringe theory drifts into your memory, one told late at night by firelight, that the pyramid was never meant just as a tomb, but as a kind of weather anchor, its shape designed to harmonize with the sky. Silly maybe, but right now it feels like the storm is dancing around it. Historians still argue about the symbolism. Some say the pyramid shape echoes the rays of the sun descending to earth. Others believe it mimics the sacred Benben stone from Heliopolis, the mythic point of creation. And a few think it's all a cosmic joke. Massive triangles built because triangles don't fall over easily. Whatever the truth, the structure stands firm. even as scaffolds rattle and cloths tear, the pyramid absorbs it all, mute, immense, defiant. You take shelter beneath a tool canopy, shivering as rain dots the ground in rapid pulses. Beside you, a young boy, you think his name is a menu, clutches a chisel carved with the image of a falcon. It's worn smooth from use. "I think this one's lucky," he says. "Why?" "It's never slipped." You glance at your own tools, crusted in dust and clay. Maybe luck is less about gods and more about balance, practice, timing. When the worst of the wind passes, the cleanup begins. Fallen blocks are checked. Ropes are replaced. Food is shared, spiced lentils, hard bread, dates sticky with syrup. Spirits rise. Jokes return. One man claims the storm was Sekhmet, angry her name was misspelled in an offering. Another swears he saw a crocodile float across the site on a broken sled. You laugh not just because it's funny, but because laughter itself feels like another block set in place, a weight lifted. Work resumes slowly. The damaged sled is repaired with spare planks. A new route is marked with red ink to bypass a particularly slippery section of ramp. Everyone moves cautiously now, more attuned to the wind's warnings. And then something remarkable happens. Just before sunset, the clouds split. The pyramid catches the light like a prism, golden and enormous, its tip slicing through the last of the storm. The workers pause. Even the overseers fall quiet. You breathe in. There's a moment, so brief you wonder if you dreamed it, when you hear a hum, not from wind or tools, but from the pyramid itself. A low vibration, a sigh of stone settling. Ka stands beside you. She's holding. He doesn't mean the pyramid, not just the stones. He means the idea, the purpose, the belief that something so grand can rise from bare hands in borrowed time. Later, by the fire, as the sky swirls into violet, the priest tells a new story. That today's storm was a test, that the pyramid passed. Even R.A. gets thirsty, he says, sipping his beer. You sleep under the stars, with wet sand beneath you and a block to your back. You feel the weight of the day, but also something lighter. Gratitude. This work, this place, it doesn't just wear you down. It builds you up. And somewhere in the distance, deep in the base of the pyramid, another stone is set in place. Another whisper of eternity locked in limestone. By now, the road to the pyramid feels like an old song, familiar, rhythmic, comforting in its repetitions. But today, your steps take you even farther, past the worker villages, past the Nile ports, and into the heart of the land itself, to the source of the heaviest stones of all. The granite doesn't come from Giza. It comes from Aswan, far to the south, in the belly of a land shaped by river and rock. And it doesn't come quietly. You travel in your mind's eye down the Nile, past crocodile banks and papyrus marshes, through temple cities and sun-baked hills. The river narrows here. The granite quarries of Aswan lie at the first cataract, where the Nile buckles and foams, throwing up boulders like dice scattered by gods. It's no gentle stream, it's a gauntlet. You stand in the quarry now, and everything is red. The stone is coarse, dense, flecked with quartz like stars frozen in clay. Granite, the unyielding cousin of limestone. Where limestone hums under tools, granite resists. Cutting it is like trying to carve thunder. You watch a team chip away at a massive block, copper chisels ringing in chaotic rhythm. Nearby, dolerite pounders, stones harder than granite, are lifted and slammed down again and again. A cloud of dust rises. The men are soaked in sweat. Every breath tastes like iron and fire. And then you see it, the unfinished obelisk. Still embedded in the quarry floor, this monster of stone was abandoned mid-carving, likely due to a crack discovered too late. It would have stood over 120 feet tall, weighing more than 1,000 tons. Even broken, it commands silence. You walk along its flank and feel the sting of humility. Not everything is conquerable, even in Egypt. Too greedy, says an old cutter beside you. The gods whispered, but we carved anyway. He's not bitter, just tired. He pats the stone gently, like an old friend who tried their best and simply couldn't. Granite blocks for Khufu's pyramid are more modest, between 25 and 80 tons each, but still massive enough to break bones or ships. Once cut, they are smooth, shaped, and moved by teams who know every trick the earth allows. And then comes the journey north. Granite doesn't float, but it can be convinced to ride. The blocks are loaded onto massive wooden boats, specially constructed for balance. These are not the reed boats of fishermen or scribes. They're thick-ribbed, double-hulled creatures, some lashed with thick ropes of palm fiber. The voyage is slow. When wind fails, men row. When the river fights, poles and tow ropes are used. You hear stories of harbor crews chanting to lift a stone into place, only for a barge to capsize and vanish into the black belly of the Nile. Some stones, says your boatman with a shiver, didn't want to leave. You drift with them. A week on the river, the sky turning from fire to ink and back again. Camps along the banks. Fires flickering on shore. Children waving from villages. The block always silent, heavy, dreaming its granite dreams. Finally, you reach Giza. The granite is offloaded with groans and curses. Levers, rollers, rope pulleys. A slow drag across compacted roads, sand wetted and tamped every few feet. Teams rotate. Offerings are made. The journey continues to the pyramid's inner sanctum. These blocks aren't placed on the outer face. They're used inside, deep in the heart of the pyramid, the king's chamber. You stand in its shadowed quiet, still unfinished in this moment, but already sacred. Its walls will be formed from these same Aswan giants. Smooth, square, tight as a seal door. You run your hand along one, cool despite the sun outside. It's not just a tomb, it's a pressure chamber. Engineers whisper that the structure is designed to relieve stress from above, using granite beams laid in staggered levels. Some even compare it to architectural trickery, a primitive form of load distribution. How did they calculate it? No calculators, no models, just stone, intuition, and trial by collapse. Historians still debate whether the builders knew the structural logic or simply stumbled upon it through repetition. What we know is this: the king's chamber holds perfectly, still, and it's not alone. Above it lie the relieving chambers, 5 narrow, hidden spaces meant to absorb and deflect the crushing weight of stone above. Some of the graffiti inside is among the few written records we have from the pyramid's construction. Names of work gangs, dates, little jokes scratched into eternity. You picture Ka again, maybe older now, clambering up a shaft with a pot of red paint, writing a name, laughing, immortal by accident. Even today, that graffiti is some of the best evidence we have that the pyramid was built block by block, crew by crew, not by aliens or lost super civilizations or divine hands, but by people, people like you. You step back outside. The pyramid shimmers in the sunset. And now, knowing what's inside, it seems even stranger that something so outwardly plain holds such complexity beneath the surface. Not just rooms, but ideas. Not just stone, but memory. You crouch and press your palm into the dust beside a newly delivered granite block. It's warm. It's solid. It's patient. Like Egypt itself. The night air over Giza is cool, crisp, and full of stars. You lie on your back near the workers' village, watching constellations drift slowly across the sky. The fire crackles beside you, and someone hums a lullaby in a language old even then. But tonight isn't about campfires or tired hands. Tonight is about the heavens, because the Great Pyramid isn't just a pile of stone. It's a compass, a star map, a prayer frozen in limestone. You roll over and face the pyramid's edge, tracing the line of its base with your eye. North, perfect north. The pyramid is aligned with the cardinal directions with astonishing precision, off by only a fraction of a degree, so minor you'd miss it if you weren't looking with a theodolite, and they didn't have those. So how did they do it? You find yourself with the surveyor's crew at first light. These men don't carry sleds or chisels. They carry plumb lines, polished copper tools, and slivers of obsidian for marking angles. They speak in numbers, yes, but also in stars. They begin with the pole star, or what stood in for it back then, Thuban, in the constellation Draco. Not as bright as Polaris today, but it was near the celestial North Pole around 2500 BCE. Two stars, Thuban and Kochab, become the guides. Using a plumb line and careful observation, the surveyors line up their sights, tracing the axis between heaven and earth. You kneel beside one and squint at the tools. "You see it?" he asks. "I think so." "Then it's there," he says with finality. He draws a line in the sand, and with that, the pyramid's orientation begins. Some say they also used the shadow method, watching the tip of a gnomon, a tall stick or staff, cast shadows throughout the day. Where the shadow is shortest, there lies true north. Tedious, repetitive, but effective. Then again, others suggest the sun itself played a key role, that solstices, equinoxes, and the horizon line helped align the structure. The Egyptians worshipped Ra, after all. What better blueprint than his daily journey? Historians still debate the exact method, but there's no debate about the result. The Great Pyramid is aligned more precisely than any modern building until the invention of GPS, a fact that has fueled endless theories, alien assistance, Atlantean geometry, lost civilizations with magnetic tools. You smile at the absurdity. Then you glance at the surveyor beside you, hunched over a bit of twine and starlight, and suddenly those theories feel less necessary. Maybe patience is just as powerful as lasers. As the sun rises, you follow the shadow of the pyramid across the sand. You trace its edge with your fingertips, noting how the light plays against the stone. You remember that the original pyramid would have had polished casing stones, now mostly robbed or eroded, that reflected the light so perfectly it could blind. That light wasn't just beautiful, it was spiritual. The pyramid was designed to mimic the primordial mound, the first hill to rise from chaos in Egyptian mythology. Like that sacred hill, it emerges from the flat desert, catching the morning sun and sending it back toward the sky. Even the pyramid's angles are purposeful. A slope of about 51.5 degrees, a value some claim encodes sacred mathematics, such as the golden ratio or pi. Others say it mimics the angle of the sun's rays at particular times of year. You run the numbers in your head, then let them go. Whether it's geometry or myth, what matters is this: the pyramid was made to harmonize with the cosmos. You meet a priest who oversees celestial rituals. He wears leopard skin over one shoulder, and his fingers are stained with ochre. He shows you a star map etched on a clay tablet, its surface worn smooth by decades of handling. "These stars," he says, pointing, "are not just dots. They are guides, judges, watchers. They see what we build. They record it." He speaks of the Duat, the Egyptian underworld, a mirror realm beneath the earth where the dead journey by boat and light. The pyramid, he explains, is not just a tomb. It is the pharaoh's vehicle to ride the stars. You follow him through a ceremony at dusk. A team of priests gather on a platform aligned to the sky. They raise their hands and chant the names of stars. For a moment, the desert feels silent, held, like the whole world is listening. And somewhere inside the pyramid, the alignment holds true. One corridor points to the belt stars of Orion, Osiris's constellation, the god of death and rebirth. Another shaft aligns with Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, linked to the goddess Isis. You close your eyes. You imagine Khufu's soul rising through the narrow passage, through the stone, through the stars, joining Ra in his solar bark, rowing forever across the sky. A fringe theory surfaces in your mind that the pyramid was a kind of ascension machine, using its precise alignments and internal geometry to focus energy or transmit consciousness. You smile, sleepy but curious. Maybe not. But then again, what is a pyramid if not a manifested dream? As night falls again, the stars return to their vigil. You lie back beside the same fire as before, the pyramid now a black silhouette against a silver sky. Someone nearby hums that same lullaby. You hum along. The stones above you may weigh thousands of tons, but tonight they feel light, buoyant in the sky. Because this isn't just architecture. It's astronomy. It's philosophy. It's the hum of heaven translated into stone. Morning again. But not just any morning. This one smells of ink and calculation. You've spent days watching stone rise into the sky, but today you find yourself sitting cross-legged in a quiet corner of the workers' village, facing a board of smooth limestone. On it, a scribe is drawing straight lines and curves using nothing but string, charcoal, and a chipped bronze compass. Welcome to the mathematics of the pyramid. It's not flashy, it's not magic, but it's everywhere, baked into every corner, every block, every angle. As you lean in to study the sketches, you realize the pyramid wasn't just built with muscle, it was built with math. A master builder joins you. He's soft-spoken, slow in movement, with the easy confidence of someone who's solved 1,000 problems and still finds joy in the next one. His name is Panacea, and when he talks about measurements, his eyes glow like he's describing a beloved river. He starts with the royal cubit, the sacred unit of length used by the ancient Egyptians, roughly 52.3 centimeters, depending on the reign and ruler. He shows you a measuring rod, blackened by use, marked with palm widths and finger widths. Every stone, every tier, every alignment begins with that cubit. The base of the pyramid is 440 cubits on each side. The height, 280 cubits. That's not arbitrary. Panacea leans in and grins as he writes. 280 divided by 440 is equal to 0.636. Then he shows you another number. 1 divided by pi/2 is almost equal to 0.636. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe not. Some modern theorists argue that the pyramid encodes pi symbol, and even the golden ratio, phi, in its dimensions. That the ancient Egyptians understood these mathematical constants long before they were named by Greek thinkers. Historians are still divided. Did the Egyptians discover these ratios intentionally, through observation and repetition? Or are modern minds reading too much into the measurements? Either way, it's hard to ignore the elegance. The triangle of the pyramid, the relationship between its base, height, and slope, forms what we now call a Pythagorean triangle. But this was 2,000 years before Pythagoras. Panacea just chuckles. We don't name numbers, he says. We listen to them. You like that. It makes sense. You see it in the tools. Cords tied in loops of 3, 4, 5 lengths, used to make right angles. Plumb lines made from twisted reeds. Water levels, simple but effective. These aren't just tools. They're instruments in a symphony of precision. And the workers know their rhythms. You follow one to the stone yard, where blocks are checked for squareness. A foreman drops a weight on a string against a newly cut face. If the shadow lies perfectly in line with the stone's edge, it passes. If not, it's sent back. Not out of punishment, out of pride. The masons sing as they work. Not loud, but steady, like a drumbeat wrapped in breath. Measure once, then measure twice. Stones that lie make gods think twice. You catch the rhythm. It seeps into your bones. Later, you walk among the tiers, layer upon layer of squared stones, each one placed with astonishing accuracy. Some of the joints are so tight, you can't slip a blade of grass between them. There's no mortar, just fit, just geometry. It's not just the exterior, either. Inside, the pyramid's passageways show careful alignment, angles that follow predictable slopes. The descending passage drops at 26.5 degrees, nearly perfect from end to end. The ascending passage meets it like a junction of ideas. And then there's the Grand Gallery, a steep, narrow, corbelled corridor with a ceiling over 28 feet high. You walk it in awe, the sides leaning inward, the stones stacked like ribs, holding in something ancient and breathless. It feels intentional. And in the air there's a whisper, not of ghosts, but of equations, of problem solvers, of builders who didn't just stack stone, but calculated meaning into every angle. Panacea finds you again near the gallery's mouth. He carries a small palm leaf scroll, covered in faint markings, fractions, tables, tiny diagrams. This, he says, was my grandfather's. He taught me the slope of the pyramid before I could walk in a straight line. He shows you a symbol, a square split into smaller parts, used to calculate area. A rudimentary formula, but precise enough to measure fields, blocks, and labor quotas. Egyptian math is built on unit fractions, halves, thirds, sevenths. Everything broken into neat pieces, like bread shared among many. Even the way they divided labor was mathematical. Teams were assigned based on block quotas per day. Not just raw numbers, but factoring weight, distance, and complexity. Panacea smiles as he describes how a team once, but they could move 40 blocks in a day instead of 25. They lost. The blocks don't care for pride, he says. You ask if he ever makes mistakes. Of course, he nods. That's why we check twice. The pyramid forgives no haste. As the sun dips, casting sharp golden angles across the structure, you walk the perimeter one more time. You count the courses, over 200 in total. You trace a line from base to apex and feel the numbers sing. Order, scale, patience, pattern. The math of the pyramid isn't just calculation, it's philosophy. A belief that order is divine, that symmetry brings peace, that building with care can bring you closer to eternity. You sit near the edge of the desert as dusk falls, and for a moment you see it. Not a monument, not a tomb, but a vast, still equation in stone. A formula for remembrance, a proof of humanity. The sun has barely risen, and you're already ducking into shadow. A narrow slit in the pyramid's northern face swallows you whole, and for a few moments, the air changes. It's not cooler exactly, it's denser. It feels like walking into the chest of something very old that has just exhaled after holding its breath for 4,000 years. Today you go inside. You press a hand to the rough-cut stone wall, the interior less polished than the gleaming outer casing once was. These passages were never meant for tourists or light. They were sealed, in most cases forever. And yet, here you are, candle in hand, breath echoing softly in the shaft. Your guide is a thin man named Neckham. His sandals barely make a sound as he moves. His fingers, long and calloused, brush the walls like he's reading them. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, the pyramid seems to lean in and listen. Not everything here was meant to be found, he says. He leads you through the descending passage, a sloping shaft that plunges deep beneath the pyramid's base. It's steep, about 26 degrees, and tight, not quite tall enough to stand straight. You hunch, stepping carefully. The floor is smooth in some parts, jagged in others, worn by time, or maybe by explorers from centuries past. Eventually, you arrive at a small room, the subterranean chamber. Carved directly into the bedrock, it's a rough, unfinished place. No polished walls or elegant shaping. Just raw stone, a hollow carved in darkness. Some believe this was the original burial chamber, later abandoned for reasons unknown. Others think it was symbolic, representing the underworld, the womb of the earth. There's a pit at its center, square and deep. No one knows what it was for. A sarcophagus? A shaft? A decoy? Historians still argue. You sit on the chamber floor for a moment, listening. There's a quiet hum, not sound exactly, but presence. As if the pyramid itself remembers being born. Neckham doesn't linger. Come, he whispers. Upward. You follow the narrow ascending passage, climbing toward the pyramid's mysterious heart. Midway, the passage splits. One fork leads to the queen's chamber. You enter. Unlike the subterranean room, this chamber is carefully finished, polished limestone walls, a gabled ceiling, the faint impression of reverence. And yet, there is no sarcophagus here. No inscriptions. Just emptiness. Some believe this chamber was never used. Others think it housed sacred objects or the Ka, the life force of the pharaoh. The chamber contains two enigmatic air shafts, angled tunnels leading outward, but not all the way through the pyramid. They serve no practical purpose for ventilation. Instead, they appear aligned to stars, one toward Sirius, one toward Orion's belt. You press your ear to the wall. Silence, but not absence, just waiting. Neckham says nothing. He only gestures toward the final ascent, the grand gallery. It takes your breath. Tall, steep, and narrow, its walls step inward with each course of stone, forming a vault above your head. The floor has a sunken groove. The walls have slots. No one fully knows why. Perhaps they once held sledges or counterweights. Perhaps they channeled something more abstract. Sound, light, energy, prayer. You climb slowly, your sandals slipping slightly on smooth stone. At the top lies the most sacred room, the king's chamber. Granite, not limestone. Heavy, dark, humming with presence. The walls are smooth polished. The ceiling is flat, held aloft by massive granite beams. Some weigh over 50 tons. You imagine them being hoisted, placed, interlocked without mortar. You imagine the minds that measured, cut, and dared. And at the center, the sarcophagus, empty, unadorned, carved from a single block of red granite, its corners worn slightly from visitors, ancient or modern. No lid survives. No body was ever found, but its presence is undeniable. You step close and run a hand along its inner lip. It's cool, like river water at dawn. Some claim the sarcophagus resonates, that it sings at certain frequencies. You knock gently, and indeed, there's a low tone, a kind of throat-deep hum. Others have speculated wildly. Sonic chambers, energy transducers, alien altars. You can't help but smile. But to you it feels simpler and more profound. It's a space, a vessel. For a man, yes, but also for belief, for silence, for the idea that something can endure. And then Neckham points upward. There's more. Above the chamber are 5 relieving chambers, stacked one on top of the other. Few people ever see them. Narrow, flat, meant to distribute the weight of the stones above. But inside, red-painted markings remain, quarry notes, crew names, casual graffiti. One reads, "The Friends of Khufu." You blink. After all this solemnity, It's strange comforting to think of workers, tired and hungry, scrawling their name in the ceiling like mischievous kids behind the temple. You leave the chamber in quiet. The pyramid closes behind you like a breath drawn and held. Outside, the sun glows hot and the structure gleams, impassive and massive. But you know its secret now, that beneath the perfect faces, the tight joints, the precise angles, there's also mystery. Unfinished rooms, dead-end corridors, forgotten marks, and still, every stone remains in place, whispering. Not everything must be understood to be remembered. You stand beneath the shadow of 2.3 million stones and feel smaller than you ever have, and stronger too, because you know this wasn't built by magic. It was built by hands. By now, your steps are slower, not because you're tired, though you are, but because the weight of understanding has grown heavier with each section of the pyramid you witnessed. Today, though, it's not about the stones, not the ramps or the stars or the chambers. Today is about the people, not the pharaoh, not the architect, but the ones who bled. You begin in the workers' village. Its remains lie to the south of the pyramid, long buried under sand, now carefully unearthed by curious hands and brushing tools. What emerges from the soil is not misery, but life. You pass rows of modest rectangular homes, stone foundations, mud brick walls, bits of clay pottery. You see bread ovens, fish bones, and even the charred remains of date pits. There are signs of children here, dogs, broken tools, worn sandals, and, curiously, a comb made of carved bone. This place is not a prison. It's a neighborhood. You meet Hentet, a brewer's wife. Her face is round, sun-warmed, hair tied back with twine. She's stirring a vat of bubbling mash. It smells sour, yeasty, a little like wet grain. "We make 2 batches a day," she says, wiping her hands. Some strong, some sweet. The workers get it fresh. It helps their backs, I think. She laughs when you ask for a taste. She hands you a cup. It's warm, gritty, surprisingly nourishing. "There's barley in your belly now," she says. "You're one of us." You move through the village, and every face tells a story. Here's a rope puller with a crooked smile, his hands permanently closed from years of tension. Here's a mason with a limp, but eyes that still sparkle when he inspects a perfect corner. Here's a scribe hunched over a logbook, his reed pen fluttering with every breath. But not everyone stays healthy. At the site's edge lies a small necropolis, the cemetery of the workers. Stone tombs, modest in design but dignified. These are not slave graves. They're honored dead, buried with pottery, tools, and sometimes even food. You see inscriptions, stone setter to the king, friend to Khufu, one who moved the horizon. There's pride here, respect. You meet Rekhmet, a healer. She keeps herbs tied in bundles, each for a different pain. Mint for breath, papyrus root for fever. She speaks of broken limbs, crushed toes, strained backs. She doesn't sugarcoat it. "Stones are not kind," she says, binding a wrist with linen. "But people can be." Her assistant, a boy with a hair lip, is mixing paste from date resin and copper filings. He hums as he works. You ask him what he's making. "Antiseptic," he says. You blink. They understood infection. They understood surgery. Some skulls unearthed nearby show evidence of successful trepanation. Holes drilled in the head, then healed over. These weren't butchers. They were doctors. At the mess hall, food is being served. Broad loaves of bread, bowls of lentil stew, onions, figs, and yes, more beer. Everything made fresh. These workers aren't surviving. They're living. And there's laughter. So much of it. One man tells a joke about the time he fell asleep on a sled and woke up halfway to the quarry. Another says he swears the pyramid grows taller every time he turns his back. Someone sings a song that starts serious and ends with goat noises. You sit and eat, and it all feels human. This is what the pyramid is made of, isn't it? Not just stone, but stories. You walk out toward the work site in the late afternoon, the sun casting long shadows across the scaffolds. Teams are dragging blocks, levering edges, adjusting ramps. The rhythm is familiar, but now each movement carries a name. That puller? Tanny. Has 5 kids. That mason? Jet. Lost 2 fingers and kept working. That scribe? Meba. Tells better stories than the priests. You realize you've joined a lineage, not of rulers or monuments, but of people who showed up every day, who bled, who laughed, who laid their dreams into the cracks between stone. A small girl runs past, chasing a goat. The goat leaps over a line of rope and knocks over a bucket of ash. Everyone laughs. You hear one man call out, "There goes our sacrifice." The girl curtsies dramatically and leads the goat back, now calm and chewing on straw. You think of how this world has been flattened by history into a single shape, a pyramid. But that's not how it feels when you're in it. It's messy, full of mistakes and revisions and miracles no one ever wrote down. And maybe that's the truth that matters most. Not the theories or the angles or even the pharaoh's name, but the calloused hands that shaped it, the mouths that sang to pass the hours, the families that waited, the bodies buried not in gold, but in sunlight and grit. You stand once more at the base of the pyramid, now nearly complete, its apex brushing the heavens. And you whisper, "This is not a monument to kings. It's a monument to us." You wake to a sound that's become oddly soothing, stone on stone. It's morning again, but there's a change in the air. The wind has quieted, the laughter in the camp is gentler, and the pyramid is nearly done. It towers above you now like a sleeping god, its flanks steep and unwavering, its apex still under construction, but everything else set, firm, eternal. Today, though, you're not working with tools or measuring lines. Today, you're listening to rumors, not in the marketplace, not among foreign scribes, but here among the workers themselves. You sit with a group near the shade of a limestone outcrop, chewing dried figs and barley bread. Someone leans in. "Have you heard about the priest who made the stones float?" You raise an eyebrow. He nods seriously, told the block a secret name, whispered it into the cracks. Then it rose like a bird. Laughter erupts. Another joins in. No, don't be silly. It wasn't words. It was sound, sacred hums, deep tones that vibrated the air until the stone forgot how heavy it was. They're not joking, not really, because in the face of such a massive creation, the line between myth and method gets blurry. Even the builders, even the ones setting the blocks, seem to need a little magic. You listen as more stories spill out. One man swears he saw a worker vanish inside the stone and reappear days later, mumbling about golden rooms beneath the desert. Another believes the pyramid was never meant for Khufu, but built for a star god who will return when the top stone is finally set. Fringe? Absolutely. But it isn't just workers passing these tales. Priests whisper them too, half warnings, half wonders. You spend the afternoon with one such priest. He's old, leathery, with a raspy voice and a gaze that seems to pierce limestone. His name is Merka, and he carries no tools, only a pouch of blue powder and a shell-carved pendant. He leads you to the pyramid's base, near where the entrance tunnel begins. He points to a stone, not large, but oddly shaped, with grooves along the side. "Not for support," he says. "That's a resonator." You blink. "A what?" "A stone that sings." He taps it gently. You hear nothing. "Not with ears," he whispers. with breath. He pours some of the blue powder into the groove. A breeze stirs. The powder dances, no trick, just a swirl of color caught in a pattern that feels like intention. He looks at you seriously. Everything has frequency, even grief, even stone. You're not sure what he means, but you nod anyway. This isn't about believing in levitating blocks or chanting engineers. It's about something deeper, the need to fill the unknown with meaning. Historians today still chase these ideas. Not priests, but physicists, engineers, mystics. Some say the pyramid's internal structure resonates at 5 Hz, a low frequency humans can barely detect but feel. In the spine, the stomach, the dreams. Others claim the dimensions correspond to planetary orbits, or even encode the circumference of Earth. Did Khufu's architects know the world was round? You think of Panacea and his chalkboard angles, his string and squares. Maybe they didn't need to know the Earth size. Maybe the pyramid knew it anyway, like an unconscious echo. You wander near the apex where final blocks are being hauled. One is shaped differently, smaller, polished, golden tinted. The capstone. No one agrees whether it was ever placed. If it was, it's long gone now, perhaps stolen or shattered. But even its absence is filled with lore. Some say the capstone was carved from electrum, a mix of gold and silver, meant to catch the sun like a divine eye. Others believe it was never physical at all, only symbolic. A space meant to be filled with light, or perhaps with sound. One worker jokes that the capstone holds the true name of the earth, written in code only the dead can read. And then there are those who whisper that the pyramid is not a tomb or a beacon, but a gate, not to heaven or the stars, but to something beneath. You remember the unfinished subterranean chamber, its pit, its silence, its waiting. Neckham, your soft-stepping guide, joins you later in the day. He's quiet, but this time he speaks first. Do you know what a pyramid is? You smile, ready with a clever response. He shakes his head. It's a question. You blink. He continues. It asks, what are you willing to build for a dream you'll never see finished? That night, the wind picks up. You lie awake, staring at the stars, your mind full of equations and myths. You understand now that the pyramid is not just a structure. It's a mirror. What people see in it, math, mystery, magic, is what they bring with them. And maybe that's the greatest trick of all. That something so heavy, so permanent, can remain so endlessly open to interpretation. You're not at the base anymore. You're climbing. Not in theory, not with the workers, but with your own body, hand over hand, foot over foot, ascending the sloped face of the Great Pyramid. Not in some ancient reenactment, but in your imagination, your breath tight, your limbs tingling. The air thins a little, or perhaps it's just the awe pressing down. This is no child's pyramid of toy blocks. This is a mountain made by thousands of hands. And it holds. As you crest the upper tiers, your fingers run over joints so tight, so precise, they feel fused by intention rather than time. The blocks here are smaller than those at the base, but they're no less vital. Each stone has a place, just like each person who touched it. You sit on one and look out. From this height, Giza spreads like a woven mat. To the east, the Nile glimmers, eternal, winding, the same lifeline that carried the stone beneath you. To the west, the desert stretches endlessly, where the sun will soon drop behind the horizon like a swallowed torch. Between them lies the pyramid, an axis, a hinge, a center. But why hasn't it collapsed? Surely 4,000 years of sand, storms, and shifting earth should have reduced it to ruin by now. And yet it remains, solid, defiant, whispering. You begin to notice its secrets of strength. First, the foundation. Set into the Giza Plateau's bedrock, the pyramid wasn't built atop sand, but carved into the land itself. The base is level within mere inches, a feat so precise that engineers today marvel at it. Then, the stone layers. They're stacked not uniformly, but in varied courses, some thick, some thin, each carefully arranged to distribute weight. The internal structure, too, is brilliant. The corbelled ceilings of the Grand Gallery and the relieving chambers above the King's Chamber absorb and deflect pressure. Imagine stacking wet clay and hoping it won't squish. Now replace the clay with 6 million tons of rock and make it last 45 centuries. The builders understood compression. They worked with gravity, not against it. You remember the masons tapping blocks into place, adjusting one corner with a handful of sand, shaving a fraction off with a copper chisel, nodding silently. It's not flashy. It's not cinematic. It's just excellence. And then there's shape. A triangle is one of the most stable forms in nature. Wide base, narrow tip. When weight presses down, it spreads that force along the slope sides and into the earth. Even earthquakes struggle to rattle it. Rain runs off. Wind glances away. Sand gathers at its base, but never eats it alive. You recall what Ka once told you. She doesn't fight the world. She listens to it. The pyramid's longevity isn't just about strength. It's about harmony, with wind, with light, with time. Even erosion has played fair. The limestone casing may be mostly gone, stripped by later generations, but the core holds. The skeleton beneath the skin remains exactly where it was meant to be. You think of all that's fallen in 4,500 years, empires, cities, languages, and yet this still stands. And not only stands, it influences. You descend now, carefully, stone by stone. With each step, you recall a legacy not of kings, but of ideas. Architecture shaped by intention. Design that speaks without needing to be read. Later, you walk along the base and meet an elder stonecutter sharpening tools. His hands are scarred but sure. You ask him gently why it hasn't collapsed. He chuckles. Because it was never meant to. He points to a nearby beetle rolling a ball of dung. You think he plans to fail? You laugh, but then he adds, "We knew our stone. We knew our wind." That's all it takes. Modern scientists have run simulations, of course. They've scanned the pyramid with muons, probed it with ground-penetrating radar, modeled it in CAD software. Some call it overbuilt. Some say it got lucky. But most agree it's a masterpiece of structural engineering. Even the tiniest details, like the slope of the entrance tunnel or the layout of internal passageways, serve not just spiritual, but practical purposes. Air circulation, temperature stability, load management. It's not just sacred, it's smart. As night falls, you stand again at its edge, now golden in torchlight. A crew passes by, their silhouettes long in the sand. One carries a lever, another hums a quiet tune. You follow the curve of the pyramid's face with your eyes. Smooth, proud, unfinished only in the way all living things are. And that's what it is now, isn't it? Not just a monument, but a living structure. It breathes history. It sings geometry. It survives time. You sit with your back against the lowest block and rest your head. The stone is warm from the day, but cooling now. You place your hand flat upon it. You don't need it to move, or glow, or resonate. Its miracle is that it still exists, and that perhaps is enough. You wake in the quiet before dawn, when the stars still linger, but the sky is hinting at change. The pyramid looms nearby, no longer a curiosity or an enigma, but something more personal, like an old teacher. Familiar, unyielding, honest in its silence. Today, your footsteps trace the echo of its shadow, not the pyramid itself, but its reach, its ripples across time. Because long after the last block was placed and the capstone or its absence left the apex open to the heavens, the pyramid kept living, not physically, but culturally. You begin in the temples that once stood nearby. You see the priests walking in silence, brushing past pylons, their hands filled with incense, their lips moving in prayers older than memory. These temples, once part of a grand mortuary complex, served not just to honor Khufu, but to maintain the pyramid's energy, its function as a link between worlds. But empires fall, time passed, and the pyramid stood alone. It survived sandstorms, invasions, earthquakes. It watched the Nile shift its course. It outlived the pharaoh it was built for and the gods it was meant to serve. And still it mattered. In the Greek world, they called it one of the seven wonders. Herodotus tried to explain it, claimed it was built by 100,000 slaves, with ramps and secrets now long lost. He was wrong on many counts, but his wonder was genuine. In medieval maps, it became a symbol of mystery. Pilgrims visited it. Poets wrote about it. Crusaders marked it on parchment with tiny triangles, misunderstanding everything and loving it all the same. You see a 13th century traveler sketching it by candlelight, imagining that Jinn had lifted the stones, or that Noah's sons built it after the flood. You smile. The myths never stopped, just changed. In the Islamic Golden Age, mathematicians studied its angles, wondering what truths the ancients knew. Astronomers traced its alignment with the stars. Philosophers whispered that it held hidden books, scrolls buried beneath, sealed in vaults reachable only through forgotten geometry. You stand in Cairo now, in the 1800s, beside Napoleon's surveyors. They scale it, measure it, argue over it. Napoleon himself is said to have stood in the king's chamber and emerged quiet, changed. "I do not wish to speak of what I saw there," he said. Maybe, perhaps. The story, true or not, persists. In modern times, the pyramid becomes more than a monument. It becomes a symbol of power, of mystery, of what humanity can achieve. Conspiracy theorists arrive, their hands full of spirals and magnets and secret diagrams. They measure the sides. They chase the golden ratio. Some claim it's a map of the earth, others that it stores energy like a cosmic battery. None agree. All are entranced. And yet, scientists join the chase too. Engineers, architects, physicists. They scan it with muon detectors, tiny particles from space used to peer through the rock. In 2017, they find a hidden void above the Grand Gallery. No entrance, no explanation, just space. Maybe it's symbolic, says one scholar. Maybe it's storage, says another. Maybe, whispers a third, we were never meant to find it. And still the pyramid stands. Tourists climb its lower tiers, their hands brushing over ancient tool marks. Vendors sell postcards. Guides tell stories, some true, some embroidered, all echoing the same truth. It's here, still. And so it begins to influence everything. Designers mimic its shape in buildings and memorials. Artists paint it in dreamscapes. Poets return to it again and again. It's a triangle, yes, but also a door to ambition, to mystery, to memory. You recall a small girl in the workers' village, stacking pebbles in imitation. She had no blueprint, just a feeling. And that's what the pyramid gives us now. Not answers, not proof, but feeling. That there is more to build than we understand. That time itself can be bent around intention. That stone, when placed with purpose, lives. You return to its base one more time. You sit. You close your eyes. You remember the calloused hands, the chants, the stars above the shafts. The names scrawled in red inside the hidden chambers. None of them famous, all of them real. The pyramid isn't what it was. It's more. It's a reflection of our longing, our questions, our quiet hope that something we build might matter long after we're gone. You open your eyes, and the pyramid is still there. This time, you don't move. You don't need to. You simply sit at the edge of the plateau, legs crossed, the pyramid at your side like a sleeping lion. The sky is orange and blue, that impossible Egyptian hue where fire and water seem to mix. All around you, the air feels slower, thicker, as if even time itself is exhaling. There's nothing left to build. Not today, but there is something left to feel. The Great Pyramid isn't shouting anymore. It's humming, low and steady, like a lullaby beneath the earth. You think back to your first day, staring at this impossibility of stone and sweat and wonder. How could something so ancient still feel unfinished, still filled with questions, as though every corner you turned only widened the mystery? And now, having seen its heart, climbed its spine, traced its shadow, you realize that's the point. This was never meant to be a place of answers. It was meant to hold questions. You glance over at a group of workers breaking for the day. One rolls up a rope, another pats dust from his knees. They talk quietly, as if not to disturb the weight in the air. Not the weight of stone, no, the weight of meaning. Kyle walks past you, still squinting, still chewing a reed. He gives a little nod. "You're still here," he says, not unkindly. You smile. "I'm not finished." He shrugs. "It never is." And he's right. The pyramid is a process. It continues, not through stone, but through the people who return to it, generation after generation. Builders, scholars, tourists, the lost and the curious. All of them orbiting its shape like moths around a cold stone flame. You remember a child drawing it in the dirt. You remember a priest calling it a question. You remember the silent rooms inside, where breath echoes louder than thought. And you remember the capstone that may or may not have ever existed, because perhaps completion was never the goal. There's a kind of holiness in that. As the last of the light fades, a young girl walks up and sits beside you. She holds a basket of dates and begins to eat one, slowly. She doesn't speak. She just looks at the pyramid with you. And that feels like enough. Because when you see it together, silently, you know something rare has happened. You've touched something timeless. And in that stillness, the wind picks up, soft, warm, filled with the scent of sand and barley and distant river reeds. A final chant rises from the worksite. A song you've heard a dozen times before, but this time it feels slower, like a goodbye. Stone upon stone, name upon name. We build the wind. We feed the flame. You close your eyes, and it all drifts. The rumble of sleds, the rhythm of chisels, the sigh of stars, the long, slow breath of 4,000 years. You let it go. You let yourself go. You don't fall asleep. You fade, like sand into silence, like stone into sky. The night settles fully now, cool and slow, wrapping around the pyramid like a soft linen cloth. The stars blink gently overhead, distant fires long spent, their light only just arriving. You're still sitting there, beside the stone, but everything has softened. The sharp lines blur, the corners round out. The sound fades. Your breath slows. The wind quiets. You remember that narrow passage under the pyramid, the way it curved downward like a question mark. You remember that boy with the frog on the barge. You remember the way the king's chamber hummed, not loudly, but with a pressure you felt behind your ribs. It's all still there, but it's quiet now, just echoes. You place your palm on the stone once more. It's cool. It's still. It's enough. The girl beside you leans her head against your shoulder, and you let your eyes close. Out beyond the desert, the Nile glides by in moonlight. Out beyond the Nile, the stars hum over sleeping fields. And the pyramid remains silent, still, breathing gently in the dark. Not for kings, not for gods, but for you, for anyone willing to listen, for anyone willing to build. So rest now. Let the wind cradle you. Let the weight of time become light. You've walked with giants. You've sung with stone. You've watched the sun climb 146 tiers of memory and meaning. And now, you sleep